Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, thank you so much for taking the time out today and helping us to start with the revolution that we're going to do in the new age era. I'm sure you all know what the inauguration is all about. It's called the Lending Suite. Okay, and to do that, we have Mr. Nitin Sahani, who is the director of the sales solutions and the marketing team. He's been working with Intelenet for about very long, and he has an overall experience for 25 plus years, slightly more than my age, and he's playing a very, very pivotal role in ensuring that we shape up the entire digital era into the dynamics of business. We also have Mr. Puneet Taneja. He's my favorite man in the building. And Mr. Puneet Taneja is a global head for retail banking. So whenever we take the word Puneet Taneja, the synonym called retail banking is always there. He is, again, a man which has devoted 15 plus years only to Intelenet, which I think is phenomenal. And he is also supporting to make sure that we get, support from the entire stakeholder business, and is also integrating the newest technology with business dynamics at Intelenet Global Services. Yeah. So we're going to begin now, and I would request Nitin sir to take the lead.
Thank you, Lata.
Thank you so much.
Very, very, very warm welcome to all of you who are here from Intelenet. Thank you for being here today. I just want to start off with giving you a brief background around our company, which some of you might already be aware. Intelenet is a provider of business process services. We service about 110 customers from across the world, from about 8 countries. We service customers across industries. So we service customers across industries like banking, healthcare, travel and hospitality, retail and new economy, also manufacturing, telecom, etc. I think over the years, what we've done really well is to build a very strong, very capable subject matter expertise across each of the industries we operate in. Like we've been providing banking services for over 15 years, and similar lineage in travel, healthcare, all these verticals. So the deep domain expertise that we've built in our people, that stands as a very good asset actually for us. Secondly, for us, I think what is also important, and the reason why we are here today, is the transformation-led solutions that we've been providing to our customers for now over 5 years. We started the journey of really delivering just more than cost arbitrage to our customers. So our journey has been to provide value much beyond cost arbitrage, which is things like how our clients can accomplish better customer experience, better outcomes in terms of either lower risk, better outcomes in terms of improved profitability, and also significantly lower cost of delivering the services through productivity in headcount. And that's where this entire digital transformation journey and automation journey sort of fits in, and the lending suite fits in. So as a strategy, in terms of as we started delivering transformation-led solutions almost 5 years ago, our people, which is our assets, went through extensive trainings on design thinking. So our top 400 leaders today are all trained on design thinking, and they have the ability to think out of the box and come up with newer and newer ideas, which we can constantly keep presenting to our customers, and constantly develop solutions which not just our customers, but the wider industry can benefit from. The other thing we did was to start investing almost 5 years ago in resources who have experience in robotics, digital transformation, analytics, etc. And all of this was part of a very well thought through strategy, which is what we call TAP. It's a small acronym, which is TAP. T for technology, A for analytics, P for process excellence, which really brings the subject matter expertise that we've built within our people, which brings together the technology capabilities, the digitization and automation capabilities, and the analytics capabilities to put together solutions that address pain points within the industry. So whilst we are today talking about the lending suite, which is more to do with either mortgage providers or finance companies, could be with personal loans, etc. But I think broadly our strategy, as we think through, we've got similar products and suites developed across travel and hospitality sector, across the healthcare sector. And why this is so important for us, and why it was important to communicate this to our customers and to end consumers, especially on the lending suite. I think buying a house, as you would all agree, is an emotional decision for a lot of us. And a lot of times consumers feel anxious. Will I be able to get the supports from the bank I go to or the lending company I go to? Will everything happen on time? Because consumers make commitments to people they are kind of buying the houses from to make the payments at a particular date at a particular time. And it's an anxious time for customers. And I think this is where our solution comes in. It not only helps our customers, which are lending companies and banks, but it also helps the end it also helps them build trust with end consumers. And over a period of time, as you spend some more time with us, we'll speak about the specifics of what the pain points are in this journey that a customer faces, and how some of the products or the suite that we've been able to build addresses those pain points. So yeah, I think keeping in mind, I think the technology, analytics, and process excellence, we're an amalgamation of all those capabilities to build these solutions to you. Today, as we embark, I think we are the preferred supplier of integrated services for our customers. And when we say integrated services, we not only provide contact center management services, but equally we are providing back office services which are more industry specific, and we are also providing shared services which are more around the finance function and the human resources function, etc. And I think being the preferred supplier for integrated services, I think some of this communicates, something like the lending suites communicates or brings to the fore the thought leadership that our people have been able to build to think of behalf of consumers and our customers. So with that, what I wanted to do is just give you a little more snapshot through a brief video on what is technology, analytics, and process excellence. Well, so welcome. This is our Digital Experience Center. And we briefly spoke about how the subject matter expertise is so critical to bring a solution like this lending suite to the industry. And what I'd like to do with that is actually bring the real people who are the assets behind developing this product, who are our subject matter experts, who've worked with our development team, who've demonstrated the thought leadership that is required to build products like this, and really make this happen, not just for us, but for our customers and for the consumers. So over to Puneet, who heads retail banking and has been a core member to provide direction to bring this product to life.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nathan. Hello, everyone. I'm sure most of us in the room would be thinking as to why and what is Lending Suite. So what I'll do is, before we get into the details of it, let me try and give you a quick snapshot of why and what. So why Lending Suite? Okay, I think, and maybe I'll take a lead from Nitin. Lending, I think most of us have been through that mortgage journey. Okay, so, and it's very emotional, whether it's the acceptance of the application, whether it is the offer being released, or for that matter even the funds release. That whole anxiety, the anxiousness and stuff obviously adds to the emotional journey of the mortgage bit, and it's got sentiments and emotions attached to every part of the process. So that was one of the reasons. Secondly, and if we look around, whether it is in the international market or in the domestic India market, on the loan book, the mortgage loan book is the largest of the retail lending. So almost to a tune of 50 to 60% of the overall lending, retail lending would be consisting of the mortgage book, which is interesting, and which primarily brought us to the fact that if we attack that, if we kind of look at our top line, increasing the top line, reducing our cost, we will make a huge impact to the organization, which is the bank or the mortgage lender. So those were the two things that primarily drove us. Third, because of these 2 points, which is primarily the emotional journey, the customer impact, second around the financial impact, we obviously have our regulators, whether it is the RBI, whether it is FCA, whether it is FHA, UHD, they have their glasses and lenses on, keeping a watch on these mortgage lenders and banks to say whether they're doing it right or not. So obviously the whole regulation and the compliance bits comes in primarily, and that's where the bank and the organizations take a step back to say, you know what, are we doing the right thing? Have we got all the processes in place? Have we got the compliance in place? So more often than not, to adhere to some of these compliance, we complicate the process, which actually gave us an opportunity to think there is a huge opportunity for us to simplify some of these processes, not only for the customers, not only for the bank, but also for our frontline advisor who service these customers. Now those are the three things, but the fourth and the last one, which I think I will stress upon a bit more, our expertise. So if you look back the last 15 years, I think the way we've been associated with some of our international and global banks, and very unique to the whole mortgage outsourcing industry, we do not do bits and pieces. We do the entire journey. The entire journey, right from origination of acceptance of the application to the appraisal process, to the funds release, and to servicing of the account, whether it's back on the back office, as Nitin was talking about, the integrated service, or on the contact center. So we do and are part of the entire customer journey, which is very unique in the organization and in the industry we play with. Which brought us to the fact in saying, if we have that focus and that exposure, why can't we bring all these together to revolutionize the whole mortgage industry and the mortgage product, which obviously the expertise, the technology, all these essence coming together and building something which will transform the way the customers look at it, the end consumers look at it, mortgage today. So those are the 4 reasons I think we primarily built and why we selected Lending Suite, and primarily we started the journey mortgage, but when we looked at the principles and the structure wouldn't change much, or when we move from a mortgage to let's say a business lending or a consumer lending. So keeping the structure in place, we said it's lending. Now why a suite? So lendings complete the suite. Suite, if you look at it and saying we wanted to provide flexibility to our customers, primarily because, again, keeping in mind some of these large organizations which have been in business for almost, if not more, at least 50 years and more to do business, the systems are primitive. Some of them still use green screens, and today in the world that we live in, cost is important. So primarily nobody would want to, or nobody would like to invest a huge amount to change the technology. So how can we get that flexibility to say, we get that flexibility to the customer to choose whether he wants one part of the operations or the entire journey. So we said we will create this suite which has 13 bots. So in sense, what I'm saying is I can provide one brick for your house, or we can provide the rest of the raw materials for your house, or you know what, I can build the entire house for yourselves, depends on what you want. So again, without much ado, that was Lending Suite, why and what. But what we'll do is we'll go and have a quick look into what Lending Suite is all about, and then maybe post that Jaydev and myself will take you through some of the details of these bots. Let's play the video.
Buying a house is an emotional journey. It begins from booking appointments, and from there on, the wait starts. Submitted applications go for an underwriter review to view the credit report, check affordability, request additional documents, and send it for valuation. It seems like a never-ending process. Once the offer is generated, solicitor checks the documents and does exchange of funds. All this is very complex and time-consuming. Mortgage journey involves multiple people and multiple touch points. Can you imagine if this offer letter was to be generated in 30 minutes? Now that would be a great customer experience. Our robotics process automation, or RPA, makes sure we cut down on manual tasks and errors. The Lending Suite is one of the many automation initiatives at Intelenet, which aims to provide seamless experience to customer and lending institutions. Here's a look at the 13 bot services we offer. Decision Bot. The underwriting process is complex. Documents required for employed customers are different to that of self-employed customers. Number of checks done also vary. This process is manual, and all applications go through an underwriter review. About 40 to 50% of the applications have common criteria. Intelenet offers Decision Bot, which applies the same logic as that of an underwriter and processes the application without the need of a manual review. Only the exceptions can get reviewed by the underwriter. Thus, it improves customer experience. The other bots assisting the mortgage journey are Appointment Booking, Data Capture, Workflow Bot, Assist Bot, Valuation, Fulfillment, Offer Completion, Status Report, Communication, OCR, Business Intelligence, Contact Center Front. To summarize, these bots can manage calendars, reduce manual data entry errors, assist and take rule-based decisions, control errors and information mismatch, generate business intelligence, and much more. Benefits delivered include up to 40% reduction in processing time, up to 50% reduction in cost, 80% reduction in business critical errors, enhanced operations and customer experience. Requires no change in existing systems of the bank. Take the complete suite or pick specific solutions. Each journey can be customized. Using robotics process automation, or RPA, you can offer your customers an intelligent and automated service to fulfill their dream of buying a house without much hassle. For more details, write to us at businessoptions@intelenetglobal.com.
All right, brilliant. So that gives you a feeler of what Lending Suite is. But before we kind of get into a little more detail and I kind of hand it over to JD to take us through, I think there were 4 governing principles that we kept in mind. And it's important for us to kind of lay down on the table, because when we look at the journey and where we sit as the customer and obviously the end consumer, we said speed is definitely the number one. In the world that we live in today, we need speed. We need flexibility. When I say flexibility of the bots and the platform, so it's agnostic of what platforms exist within the banks or the mortgage lenders today. It is agnostic of the markets that you deal with. So whether you're regulated by the RBI, by the FCA, or the UHD or the FHA, it does not matter. It is customizable to the requirements of that particular geography. The third is the whole transparency, because again, I mean, most of us who've been part of the mortgage journey would realize that we don't know whether our application has been accepted, if it's being underwritten, if there is an access, or further requirements being requested. So we wanted to create transparency in the entire process, and this is not only for the end consumers, but also for the customers, but at the same time for our frontline advisors to make sure the entire customer journey is enhanced to what it exists today. So let's move on to the details of it, JD.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Puneet. So, hi everyone, I'm Jaydev Hasija. I've been with the organization for over 13 years, but with lending for about 10 years. So that's where this idea and all of this kind of got created. Let's start with where we left the video. There are 13 different bots, and it actually marries the customer journey. So if you apply for a mortgage, whether it's India, UK, US, you actually go through all of these 13 different bots. But today, let's talk about few of these bots and elaborate that. So starting with appointment booking. Now, in India, obviously, this wouldn't be too much of a problem because you call up the bank, they're more than happy to give you an appointment because it's extremely competitive. But if you go back to geographies like UK and US, one of the big problems they face, it takes 8 days for a customer. So if you are the customer, it takes 8 days to just even have a conversation with the bank on to giving an interview. Now that is really, really crazy, correct? We are in a world where we should be able to do this much faster. Second, the process is very manual because, so imagine if I'm the mortgage advisor, if I'm the telephony advisor, if you call up and say, I want an appointment, imagine me going into individual calendars of the 200 plus mortgage advisors that I have and actually booking an appointment. Second biggest problem, if there are last minute changes now, which definitely happens, customer would call up and say, I can't do this today, or maybe we would not want to service them that day for various reasons. That means that I have to start the process all over again. And that got us our first idea of creating this appointment booking bot. What it does, it actually, on a click of a button, if you see, once you fill in these details, so if I'm a telephony advisor, I'll fill in some of the basic details. I will be able to straight get an appointment and get all the options on a click of a button. Now, some of the things we've got it added now, we want to try and take this to the next level. So today, on the appointments, you just fix an appointment, but here, you will actually be able to say, if suppose a customer wants to visit a branch, brilliant, we can do that. Suppose a customer wants a home visit, we can even get that done, because this almost Uberizes the entire solution and says, you could service the customer as per customer's needs, not the other way around. So that's what it does. It actually does on a click of a button. It'll give you branch advisor's location. If you want to visit a different branch, say for example, that day you're visiting somewhere else and you don't want to go back traveling an hour and go to your branch, you can go to a different branch. All of that can happen on a click of a button, and that's what this customer does. The last feature of this, what we added was, it'll be good for us. You're in a world where you could get an SMS or an email instantly when the appointment gets booked. If you change it, again, the email and SMS goes, because you should know as a customer that your appointment is scheduled, and the mortgage advisor on the other end should know that their interview is scheduled, so that can happen seamlessly.
So in a sense, what we are saying is we are creating a virtual assistant to manage not only the bank's calendar, but also the customer's calendar. We are creating reminders for the customers. We are also giving the flexibility to the customers to choose who do I need to speak to get my mortgage done, whether it is like, especially, I mean, in the international geographies, we've seen a lady would like to speak to a lady, and there are some other bits and pieces where I would actually want to look at and speak to someone who's got like 25 years of mortgage advising. I can select that, and I can choose what mode do I want to interact with, whether I want the mortgage advisor to come to my place to have that interview, can we meet at a coffee shop, can we go to the branch, can we do it over video banking. All those options are available for us to customize to the bank's requirement.
Sure. Moving away from appointments, so we have streamlined that. Now talking about data capture. What does this do? So today, mortgage interview takes close to 2 hours. If I have to say, the reason is you're asking 650 plus questions to the customer. And what we realized with about 13 plus years of experience that we have with Intelenet on mortgages, we said about 75 to 80% of all of this information is already available on the credit report. Why don't we use that intelligence rather than be sitting with the customer? Why can't we take permission from the customer, get all that 80% information filled in, pre-filled, and all you're doing is having conversations what's really needed from that customer. So that whole interview process, which today takes 2.5 hours, can be brought down to about 30 minutes, because that's where this does. What it picks up all the information from every single document that you've uploaded, and it tells you what the interview process should be. So if you see, we've customized it and we have said this bot will actually use OCR as a technology. The documents would be uploaded, it will pre-fill all of that. Imagine the customer experience, because 2.5 hours versus 30 minutes of conversation, and you're only talking about property, because that's not available on any document that you have. That you're doing here. So on a click of a button, in half an hour's time, your interview is done and all your data fields have already been pre-filled. That's the ideology of data capture.
So again, I mean, just to summarize and saying, rather than asking those questions to the customer and making him sit for almost 2.5, 3 years, and 600 questions, I'm sure a lot of us can imagine it's definitely going to take a lot of time and effort for someone to answer them and for someone to fill it up. Forget about the human errors that go in someone filling it up. So what we said was, why don't we take it? Because it's almost like an 84% of that data is available on credit reports. We can actually pull that out. So what we are saying in sense is, again, we are not making the customer fill in that information, but rather we are asking the customer and saying, here, we've got all the information that you would want to fill in, but can you have a look at and review it rather than filling it himself or herself?
Absolutely. So the appointment booking is done, your data has been captured. Now that's where the decision. Now this, in any mortgage, whoever has taken the mortgage here would know this is the most tedious process. You're talking about underwriting, correct? Now underwriters may ask you 10,000 questions, it goes back and forth. Now I can see people smiling because they're all underwriters there themselves. This is the bit where we said, why can't we get the bot to take the decision rather than having it going to a human? What it does is, we have said, we looked at all the volumes that we process and we said some of this intelligence, because the customer's profile is not so different from one to the other. So about 45-50% of the customers have a similar, the range of income and the other facilities. So we said, why can't we put that intelligence into the bot and give the decision rather than it requiring an underwriter to review, but it actually gets done by a bot. So that's what the decision is bot is all about. So if you see, as an underwriter, I'll check credit history, I'll look at income documents. It takes about 60 to 65 minutes, just the initial review, and then you will have other reviews as well. So why can't we remove that and get the bot to take a decision? It's extremely time consuming. One of the other complications that happens is, suppose if it's an employed customer, then it's very easy for us to find out or authenticate his income. If it's a self-employed, that's when you bring in all the other documents that you have to vary. So we have brought all that intelligence into the bot, and today what we are saying is, with the lending suite bot, on a click of a button, if you see here, the bot will be able to base its principles on age of the customer, the income of the customer. It will calculate affordability in the background, it will study its credit report, and it will understand loan to value as well, because as banks, you would want to, they would want to promote that some of the amount has to come from the customer, the rest the bank will give the loan on. So all of this happens in the bot and the decision is taken, and that's where the decision bot is all about. Sorry.
No, absolutely, and I think that's where the whole motive for us was, well, there will be some exceptions to the process, because we will obviously need an underwriter review for at least 40% of the cases, but at least the 60% of the cases can it actually go through the system when we know that they are attached with the right docs, and the docs the documents have the required information that we need for us to kind of make it straight through.
Absolutely, and I think taking a clue from Puneet said 40% of the customers will still need an underwriter review. So we realize, you really can't automate every single customer type and every single journey. So for those 40%, this is the next bot that helps. Now today, can I example, in a lot of banks that we operate with, there are about 13 plus applications, and as an underwriter, you're expected to pick up all the information from different applications and then start taking your discretion, because that's where you're making a decision of whether to give a loan or no. We said, why can't we make it more seamless for them? And what we have done, we have used the technology where we said, you have to validate data, you have to look at multiple screens. It takes about 40 to 45 minutes, again depending on whether it's employed or self-employed. So we brought that intelligence into the bot, and we said, why could, as a underwriter, I get all of this information on a single screen? Because I, as a bot, know that underwriter will need to see all these screens. Why can't I bring it in the single screen? Why does the underwriter have to go to 13 different applications to get this one single screen on? And that's what this bot does. So it brings all of the information to them, and it also verifies all of that information. So if your salary in your pay slip is different to what it's showing in your credit report, it kind of flags that out as well. So it not only consolidates everything on a single screen, it also verifies that against 2 different applications, and that's what the bot is all about.
So the bot is not limited to screen scraping and being an aggregator, but what it does is, and maybe to give you another example in an Indian environment is, so if I had to find out someone's or verify someone's income, I would look at your salary slips, I would look at your bank statement, and I would look at your Form 16, let's say. Can the bot compare and put all these 3 parts together and verify and pull out the exceptions to say, you know what, no, there is a mismatch, no, everything matches. So that's what this bot does from a credit report checking on looking at the affordability and looking at the credit assessment.
Absolutely. And so similarly, I'm not going to be boring you guys by going through all the 13 bots. The idea was, similarly, you will look at each and every bot, and every bot is thought through with the whole mortgage journey in mind, mortgage/lending journey, because the journey is very similar, and all the 13 bots really work on two principles. Wherever we can bring a bot, it brings that bot, so you don't need a human to do that work. Wherever you cannot do that necessarily, you would try and make it simple for the person who's going to look at it and make it the decision much faster. Now let's actually see what are the benefits, and like we saw in the video, one of the big benefits is, imagine as a customer, in 30 minutes time you actually get the offer with you. Now that's going to be really magical for the customer. Now that's what the tool will enable. Sorry Puneet, go ahead.
So this is like that voila moment and saying boom, there goes. It's like that Aadhaar, you put your finger thumb and you get all your approvals in place. This will be like you go to the bank, you give your record documents, or even if you don't, we will pull up your documents and give you a mortgage in like 30 minutes. We assess, credit risk assess you, we look at the feasibility, and in international markets we do the valuation automatically and give you a processing in 30 minutes. So while we do that, and that's the objective that we have worked to, but why? Why the lending suite for the existing the mortgage lenders or the bank or the financial institution is primarily, again, we do not touch their platforms. It is agnostic of what platform you are in, whether you are on strategic platform, which are maybe like 50 years old, or you are on new age platforms, which again is absolutely agnostic. We give you the flexibility of choosing which part of the process do you want. So if you already have A, B, C, D, and if you want E, you can take E. If you don't have, you have A, B, and you don't have C, D, E, please take C, D, E. If you don't have any of it, please have all the A, B, C, D, E. If your cost appetite, your whatever budgets are, we are flexible to provide that. So it's the entire complete suite for us to make an end-to-end offering of the mortgages to revolutionize the way we are looking at mortgages today.
Yeah. But if a client wants only one part of the whole suite, that option is also available. So if some of the banks are already ahead in their journey, if they have automation already for a lot of other things, if they only want to pick up appointment bot, that option is also available. In terms of some of the numbers, it will actually cut down the whole processing time. So today, a lot of banks give offers in about 14 days. That also is a very good number, because if I know of a lot of US banks are at about 30 plus days for an offer. So some of the banks that we work, they're at a 14 days offer. Now this will cut that down by further 40%. Imagine your offer could come in for all the customers which has the documentation in 30 minutes, for not, then that also gets reduced by about 40%. Your cost, your biggest cost driver is your underwriting time that you're spending, and that can cut down by 50% because you're getting the system to take a lot of decisions rather than requiring to go to an underwriter. Similarly, it actually removes all the errors that you could have in the underwriting process, because you can trust the system. They're using their intelligence and giving the decision exactly the right thing every single time.
Yeah, well, I think it works on the productivity and the efficiency on the entire process, but what it also does is takes care of the compliance. And I think I'll take again a lead from Nitin's word and saying it kind of builds a trust between, again, the end consumer, the organization, and the front line. And I think that's what the essence of this whole product of Lending Suite is.
Absolutely. Sure. We can, Lata, you want to take it over? Sure. Sorry, Nitin.
I think this is the Lending Suite. We briefly, this is the Lending Suite. We briefly spoke about the fact that we are a preferred supplier of integrated services. I think that puts us in a very unique position to be able to see a process or the value chain end to end. So we're not just seeing interactions on the phone, we're not just seeing the interactions at the back end, we are seeing the interactions that happen at the front office and at the back office. And because we've got the advantage of seeing it end to end, we can help provide solutions which are end to end solutions, which reduce anxiety of the end consumer, and which also help our customers as well. And our vision as an organization is to take similar solutions, and whilst this is a launch in the banking industry for the Lending Suite, we'll have similar solutions in some of the other sectors by combining the industry expertise or the subject matter expertise and the technology expertise around robotics and AI that have been built, and to bring those solutions to the market as well. So with that ado, back to Lata. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. I think JD, Puneet, Nitin, while they were talking, I was just thinking that if explaining the entire comprehensive bot can take like so much effort, imagine the amount of hard work and is gone in actually making the entire tool. So thank you so much, and congratulations to the entire team.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite the media. If you all have any questions, maybe briefly you can ask the three gentlemen standing here. Any questions that you have?
Okay, the mortgage housing for all push has been on for a while. Then I'm going to. Hi, Bijoy from Cogensis. The mortgage housing for all push has been on for a while. Many of these mortgage lenders, banks already have most of the systems in place. Many of them have many of these systems. People are bragging about 8 minutes. We can get your, we can push through your, application. A lot of the data that you're talking about is electronic data, but many of the people who are coming to you may be first-time borrowers who may not have credit histories. I'm trying to bring in a bigger question on one, where do you see yourself? Which are the kind of lenders who you think you can sell this suite to? But even more importantly, in terms of how much access to data you have. For example, biometric data, somebody mentioned Aadhaar over here. There are already security issues and privacy issues that people throw up. How much of their data do people really want to share? When you talk about somebody's CIBIL data, how much do you want somebody to tap into? A lot of this will depend on people. You're assuming that people will be okay sharing all that information. So it's a very longish question, but there are two questions in there.
So I think I'll give you my perspective, and then I'm sure the subject matter experts, which is Puneet and JD, will have theirs. So I think what we've got to, the way we've approached it is an industry problem. I think first and foremost, we have to recognize that this is a wide industry problem. It's a problem for the consumers and a project problem and an issue for lending companies as well. Lending companies are putting out value propositions that they themselves want to get to 30 minutes of loan processing, cutting down from a 30 days to a 14 days, cutting down from a 14 days to a week. So I think a solution like this is very relevant and important. Whether some of these products or the lending suites that we've built, all the solutions, when you kind of look at it all encompassing, it's an ideal world, and you kind of assume that if everything falls in place, the entire automated process can be done in like 30 minutes. In reality, we know that 14 days should come down to maybe a consumer will be happy if that 14 days can be brought to 7 days, and the consumer will be happy if he knows that I'm not going to face an anxious moment before I have to make my final payment, and am I going to be able to get it done on time. I think it's going to position banks, it's going to position consumers and reduce the anxiety level as far as that is concerned. I'm going to hand over to Puneet as well to talk about some of the data privacy issues that might exist. And he'll share an international perspective on this as well, not just an Indian perspective.
No, absolutely right. And I think that is where I think when we look at this entire lending suite, and I'll try and answer as much of both of your questions, I think we need to look at it more holistically and from an international perspective. So you're right, in terms of the Aadhaar and the CIBIL bits, I think we've heard the noise around it. But now when you put that in perspective to like a UK market, now obviously GDPR is on the European, and the GDPR and the PSD2, I think these are some of those regulations and the compliance bits I think we would want to comply with and see it as a positive and see it as a more like an enhancer rather than in saying it's kind of obstructing my way of doing things. So for example, PSD2 with open APIs, I'm actually having access to a whole lot of information that I didn't have privy to maybe earlier then. And when I look at, and maybe just answering your previous question around who are we wanting to sell, because yes, there are new the first-time buyers. There are people who are actually trying to build their credit history. Our product is not just limited to the banks. Our product is not limited to mortgage lenders. Our product, if you look at the whole value chain, we can actually assist. If you look at from a broker and a solicitor in the UK market, we can do that. You look at the US market from the primary and the secondary market, we can do that. You want to look at the mortgage-backed securities in the US market, we can do that. So one, we need to take a step back and it'll have a more global view to say, where is the requirement? And I completely recognize some of the challenges that a geography might bring, which is where I think we are putting our, the first banner that we put on the lending suite is the whole flexibility. So we work for the local regulations and stuff. Does that answer your question?
No, the point is broadly yes, but the fact is a lot of the people have already moved into the market. Many of them have already set systems in place. You may be able to get in bits and pieces into their business at best, because many of these people have taken systems that already exist in the market, or add-ons provided by their service providers. Do you actually see an opportunity to get into the more established players, which is where you will see traction? Because when the established players get in, only then will you
So our
be able to
proposition
see
is
it?
not for banks to give up what they have and move on to a lending suite like ours. That's not the proposition is. Our proposition is that the banks continue to use what they're already using in terms of the investments they've made in their products, and then leverage the lending suite, which is more robotics-led, which sits on top of their systems to make their processes more efficient. And that's where the point was, as Puneet and JD were explaining, that if some of the technology that they have already addresses some of these needs, they don't need to kind of really leverage all the 13 elements of the lending suite that have been put together. They can take parts of it and get more and more efficient in the parts that their systems don't address it. And I think that's the beauty of this system. I think significant, because it is a pain point, I think banks have invested, and they've invested a whole deal. But I think even after those investments, some of these pain points still exist, and that's what this lending suite takes away.
And if I could just add one point, because you said a lot of customers may not be open to share information. And I think the whole premise of getting into this was because we, as a bank or any financial organization, if a customer wants a mortgage or a loan, there are some basic documents you any which ways give. All we are saying is we have that information, but we're not using technology to really make it much more faster. So credit report, if you want a mortgage, you need to have a credit report, whether it's India or any other country. But the use of credit report is not happening in a lot of mortgage or banks. And that is what we're trying to say. We have access to that information. If I'm giving a loan of such a big amount to a customer, I need access to his credit history. I need to review all of that, and that can be built into our system and make it much more faster. So the premise is having the documentation, and that documentation is what we are making it much more faster for the end customer.
And I'm sure with the kind of experience that you have, I'm sure you would have realized, to Nitin's point in saying, I think there are organizations who have invested heavily. The financial segment has always been, I think it's kind of the whole, the intervention of technology has been delayed, and especially on the mortgage front. But when you look at some of these organizations and the investment that they made and the results expected, I don't think they've been able to bridge the gap as much as they would have expected. So maybe there are opportunities.
We're not replacing the industry, we're enhancing it. I think that's the objective.
Perfect, yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Thank you so much, JD and Nitin and Puneet, for answering that. So with this, we come to an end to the launch of Lending Suite. However, I would request the media fraternity to please head for lunch. And let's enjoy some sumptuous food. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Sure.